they're sitting there, and the car's lifted up, and he looks back into the rearview mirror, and he sees like those glowing eyes, and it's like grunting at him, shaking the car, and then all of a sudden it lets the car go as soon as the car was on the ground. And again, it was a manual, so he was like stick shift, and he was getting out of there as soon as the car tires were all four on the ground.
In the paranormal war room, the legends arise. We're diving deep down where the truth never lies. Diving deep down where the truth never lies. Unravel the mysteries, let the stories unfold. This beat, these tales are daring and bold.
Welcome back to the Paranormal War Room. Sai, how you doing? Welcome back.
I'm doing pretty good, Corky. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. What have you been up to the last few weeks since you've been on here?
Oh, I've had a lot of things happen. I'm actually about to release a new book in March, and I think we talked like around October maybe, so I had a book come out after that.
Really?
Um, I had a book come out in November, and then I got another one that's coming out next month that I'm working on doing advanced review copies for. And if anybody's interested, that's on Book Sirens if you want to go read it. But yeah, that's what I've been up to along with all my podcasting and the usual.
Yeah, you stay busy. I know that. I keep up with you, man. You stay busy. You got
I
something
do.
going on all the time, but I was, keeping up with you like I always do. But I noticed you was on a podcast. You was talking about Bigfoot. I was like, what? She didn't tell me nothing about no Bigfoot. So I emailed you. I said, look, I didn't know nothing about this. So would you come back on and talk to me about it? And you said, yeah. So here we are.
That's right. I
Yeah.
talked to you about a lot of things. I told you I had more in my pockets.
Well, that's good. That's more stuff we can talk about then. But yeah. Man, I tell you what, when I first started this show, I've always been the ghost guy. I tell everybody that I always want to talk about ghosts and stuff like that. I never really cared much about Bigfoot, but now look behind me, the more I talk to people, everybody wants to talk about Bigfoot. It just blows my mind. And I was always well, that's BS. I don't believe in Bigfoot, but I'm telling you, the more I talk to people and the more I hear some of the same reoccurring stories, I'm starting to kind of think maybe there's something going on there. So I know you've got a good experience now. I'm anxious to hear yours, Si. So the floor is yours.
Well, I mean, my main experience, like I said, I had some little different things that happened on that show when I was a kid, but I kind of was like you. I just was like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. You know what I mean? I never told nobody flat out, oh, you're a liar. That's BS. But I was always just kind of like, and I mean, like you, I believed in other things, ghosts and stuff like that. It was just, I don't know. I just felt like I didn't have enough to go off of. So as time went on, of course, just like you said, it's a very intriguing topic, and more people have come forward, and from Native Americans talking about long time knowledge, the little bit that they can share with us, to just the amount of sightings and experiences that have happened across the United States. It's kind of like at this point, if you're into paranormal of any type, even if like you're into missing 411, there's so many patterns. After a while, you start to kind of go, okay, maybe there's something there.
Yeah.
Well, at about the time that I had my experience, I was about at that threshold of, I'll keep an open mind. I'm not going to say, but I've never experienced anything. I've only heard through the grapevine and other people in my family and different things. Well, it finally had gotten to a point where I got into a relationship with someone that had a very intense Bigfoot experience. And, it so happened that his experience happened long before he met me, maybe 4 or 5 years before he met me. And this was maybe like 4 or 5 years into our relationship. So I would say at that time we were looking at close to about 10 years since he had his experience, right? So we used to go driving around because he was a rally racer, which is, I mean, some people might know about drifting and stuff like that. But out here, there are people who like drive around, and I do not encourage or endorse this. Do not do this. Okay.
Yeah.
It's very dangerous. It's not like, but there are people who do and who go and invest their time into actually doing long distance racing and stuff like that. My ex-boyfriend was very interested, and that was one of his ambitions. So we would go driving sometimes out in the woods just as a date thing to have fun, whatever, chill. And this happened to be one of those experiences. And we were driving out to a place called Wolf Creek. Now, Wolf Creek is in between like Cottage Grove and kind of like Lorain and Crow, Oregon, which are little towns. Cottage Grove is probably the most recognizable as more of a city, but they're little towns, and there's a bunch of like back road countries, logging roads, all kinds of stuff. If you don't know where you're going, you can easily get lost. All kinds of things can happen.
Yeah, no doubt.
Places that, yeah, we liked to go to kind of, see wildlife, just enjoy nature, whatever, get away from town. So we decided to do that one this day, and this was a part of Wolf Creek that we went to a lot. I mean, for years, never had any kind of occurrence like this. I mean, I had heard about them, yes, but nothing like this. Okay, so let me get to the point.
Oh, take your
So
time.
we finally, we're driving, we're having a good day, listening to music, and all of a suddenly he's like, I gotta pee. So he decides to take a pee break. And I mean, what do you do when you're in the woods?
Gotta get out and go
So,
pee, man. That's what you gotta do.
right. um, so the way that it happened was we were on this section of log road that came off the main highway, and it went down and it connected into like a Y shape. And then it would go either, you could go like either way with the Y, left or right. So we came and he parked like kind of on the shoulder, leaning towards the right fork, if you will. And I mean, since he was gonna go out and go pee, I was like, I might as well since we're here, right?
Right.
So he goes and he opens the door, and he walked across the road to this bigger tree, kind of off to the side of the ditch. And I could still see him, like the side of his shoulder and, back of his back. And I opened the door and kind of just popped a squat there, like you do. And I'm doing my business, and it's quiet. Like it's what you would expect quiet. And it's not quite dark yet,
Mhm.
Corky. It's like this time, it's like, well, for me, it's, about 5 o'clock. It's starting to get twilight, but
Twilight, yeah.
you can still see, it's still light. Now, when you go into the forest or you're in the mountains, you know that if it's like that in town, it's a little bit darker out there because of the cascade from the shadow of the trees, but you can still see like pretty well. Um, so I'm there, and all of a suddenly, like I said, he's on either side, but all sides of the road is covered in thicket of trees. I want you to understand, giant evergreens, the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I'm down, and I was like beside the door and in front of, like I had my door open like this. So I'm like sitting right here in the apex of the door hinge, and my back to the woods, and all of a suddenly I hear a loud crack, like boom. I mean, and it was echoing, like it was, and I'm hard of hearing too, so like it was right behind me, like someone took a log and hit it against a tree with the biggest force they had, like if they were smacking it and breaking a bat in half, like a baseball bat. And so it was
Wow.
loud and violent and scary. And I was like, oh my God, did you hear that? And he already was looking at me, and he's like, yeah. And as no sooner than he gets the word yeah out, like we hear it again. And I'm already pulling my pants up as fast as I can, jumping in the car, locking the door, because as much as I was a skeptic, I knew all the stories about, the different types of there's lore about them having kidnapped young women, young
Mm,
girls.
yeah.
There's just all kinds of stuff, and I was not wanting to test that because I'm kind of short.
Yeah.
And I just was like, no. And I got in the car, and he came to start jogging across the road. And from what his account was, is he ran across the road, and whatever it was, which we believe now was Bigfoot,
Mhm.
was this like dark, almost like shadowy black brown fur creature. He said it looked like it was like 9 feet tall, and he didn't really see it like direct on, because when he was crossing the road, it was crossing from that thicket across the road towards him.
Right.
It was at some distance, and of course the cascade from the shadow, but he's like he could see its like glowing eyes like staring at him intensely, and he didn't even he's like, I'm not even gonna mess with it, and just got back in the car, and he took off. Like he drove like he was racing out of there,
Yeah, no
and
doubt.
in a dust cloud. And I was like, oh my God. He's like, it was definitely Sasquatch. I seen, this is what it looked like, this is what I saw. And I was like, well, it didn't do anything. And he said it obviously was just making, it was like we felt like it was like a sign of like territory, like get out of here, don't mess with
Yeah.
me, or I'm here now, you need to not be here.
Yeah, animals, they mark their territory with urine and stuff like that, so maybe, it offended him because he thought you guys were trying to mark his territory, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
How far away do you think you were from Bigfoot or whatever it was?
I mean, well, like I said, to me, it felt like he was right behind me
Right.
whenever the first crack hit and he crossed the street I mean, not the street, the road, the dirt road, um, in the direction towards my ex from the thicket of woods that were behind where I was taking care of business. So, I don't know, a foot or two.
Oh, that
S
close. Okay.
Yeah, it sounded like it was, like, right there. That's how loud that sound was.
So at that distance, there's no confusing it with any other type of animal. You could really tell what you were looking at that close.
I
Uh,
mean, yeah, for him, I never seen it myself. That's the
right.
thing, and I have to be honest and transparent about that. I heard what that was, and then, of course, I was looking,
Mhm.
and I couldn't see anything because, again, kind of like he said, it had that darker fur when he was able to actually see it, not without all the camouflage in the trees and everything.
I wonder, did you guys smell anything or anything like that?
No, not at that. I mean, if I would have then, I would have been like, I smelled a pungent aroma,
Mhm.
but I did experience smelling pungent aromas a different time, which was when I was a kid. And then later, you know, he talked to me about it and he had experienced smelling that whenever he had the violent occurrence that he told me about, which again, not my story. I
Mhm.
can share what I know if you
Oh, I'd love
want.
to hear it. I'd love to hear it. Yeah.
So, according to him and two of his other friends that corroborated and were also there, they were basically doing the same thing out in the woods, young men. This was in their early to mid 20s.
Oh, yeah, doing what men do, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And they were out there and they had been basically driving around, drifting, just doing what they do, like you said, and having a good time. And then they decided that they were going to stop and they were going to take a smoke break. And it was, evening time. He said it wasn't really quite dark, but it wasn't quite light either. Same thing, kind of that twilight time period. And um, they were sitting in his car was like a little rally car, so it was like a Ford Escort,
Mhm.
four-door little like sedan car. And I mean, if you remember anything about them and the few that still exist, they are a very compact car.
Oh, I went to the theater and watched Fast and the Furious. I know all about that stuff.
Yeah, and that was like the height of the time whenever it was the most
Oh,
popular.
I
Like,
was there, man, trust me, I lived through it.
so yeah, you get it. So they're taking their break from having their heyday and they're smoking, and all of a suddenly he's like, they heard this really loud, like grunting noise. And then the next thing they know, something's lifting the car up from the back of, like clear off the ground at the back of the trunk, like lifting it up, kind of shaking it. And they all like looked back.
Good
He
lord,
looked at
really? Wow. Now that's an encounter right there.
Yeah, and, I mean, this was early 2000s too, so it's not like we all have streaming devices now,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It wasn't like that then. I mean, you could still possibly get a grainy cell phone picture out there if you were fortunate to have a
Mhm.
device battery that hadn't died by the end of the day.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so they're sitting there and the car's lifted up and he looks back into the rearview mirror and he sees like those glowing eyes and it's like grunting at him, shaking the car, and then all of a sudden it lets the car go as soon as the car was on the ground. And again, it was a manual, so he was like stick shift
Mhm.
and he was shifting into gear and getting out of there as soon as the car tires were all four on the ground.
Wow. Is that the only encounter he had ever had? Or
Well,
does this
other
happen
than
to him every time he goes to the woods?
No, no, not Sasquatch, but he does he's one of the people that was around that a couple of my ghost story counters happened with.
Mhm.
If you remember, I told you about the fog people, I believe.
I don't know if you told me about no fog people or not.
Well, maybe I didn't. I thought I did. I was sure I did. It was like the one where all these misty people kind of showed up
No,
out
that wasn't me, girl, that was another
of.
podcast.
Okay, I'll have to save that one. I ain't
Nah,
gonna.
yeah, yeah.
Like he was present for a few other interesting ones.
Mhm. Um, I don't know if you ever give it much thought, but Do you have any ideas of why we've never caught a Bigfoot on camera or anything like that?
I mean, some people think that we have, looking at some skeptical evidence.
Yeah,
It depends on what you want to believe or allow into your repertoire of possible plausible evidences. Um, Now, there's the theory that they're interdimensional,
right.
and I'm not going to say that I don't think that that's possible, especially with some of the things that I've learned about their interactions with Native Americans and how they feel about cultural belief and their intelligence, or even there are some who believe that they were the people that chose not to, like, basically assimilate or agree to going to the Indian reservations and decided to just go off grid and became kind of primatized. Again, these are different types of theories. I think the one thing that's probably the most plausible is the fact that there is so much old growth forest and so much places that we take for granted. We think that we have uncovered everything there is in nature, which we're finding out every year is not true.
Yeah, I know it.
And
Yeah,
honestly, with the when you look at Bigfoot from its description and what it seems to be, the most likely aspect is that it is an unknown primate. That's
right.
what I truly believe.
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard a lot about the intradimensional thing, and I'm not sure how much I buy into that, but I don't know. Anything's possible. But if I had to guess, I would think it would be some sort of undiscovered primate because I forget. Sorry, I forget what the date was, but silverback gorillas. I want to say it was like 1912 or something like that when we just discovered those. And I'm not sure if that's the correct date, but it was somewhere around in there. And if you think all these, throughout history, if you can think how the size of a silverback gorilla, and we didn't discover those, maybe 120 years ago. If there's like an undiscovered primate family running around out in the woods, in the United States, and I reckon they're all over the world. But let's say there's only 50 of them, that'd be pretty hard to spot unless they wanted you to spot them. If you think about the size of the world compared to the number there are of them.
Yeah, and they're very elusive creatures, and I think that the few people that do see them, it's because they spend a certain amount of time in the woods where they're
Yeah.
there. And I mean, how many people actually go and spend hours in the woods if we think about it?
And compared to the population, probably not a lot. I mean, there's obviously a lot of people that do it. But
Yeah.
I wonder, I find it awful funny that you guys, you were outside of your car, on the story you told me, you guys were relieving yourself. You had to go to the bathroom. I wonder if maybe that, I said maybe it was that they thought you were marking their territory, but wonder if they smelled that and that attracted them to you. Have you ever thought about that?
Yes, all these things are definite possibilities. But I definitely interpreted the actions as get out of this space, like
Oh
you
yeah.
don't belong there.
Yeah, if he's banging on the side of a tree, if you're trying to scare somebody and say, "Hey, you're in the wrong area," you'd definitely be trying to make as much noise as you can. I've even interviewed people that say they've had rocks thrown at them and stuff like
Yes.
that. So,
Yes.
what about the infrasound? Have you ever heard of that?
The what?
It's called the infrasound.
I don't know. I mean, explain to me what it is, and then I could say maybe because I don't know exactly what it is to be able
Well,
to
I
answer.
had never heard of it either, but the infrasound is supposedly a sound they make like I want to say kind of a scream or something like that, and it basically scares the crap out of whoever hears it. Now, the only thing that made me think about that, I was talking to another guy during a podcast, and he was explaining the infrasound. And you just think about a sound that stops you in your tracks, makes you go,
Yeah.
oh, basically, I'm not going to where that sound is at, basically something that scares you. But when I was about 14 years old, I was at my house, and I lived way out in the country, and we call them knobs here in Tennessee. I don't know if you know what a knob is, but it's like in between a hill, big hill, and a mountain. It's like,
Okay.
in between them there. But I was in my bedroom, and my stepdad, he hollered at me, and he said, "Hey, come out here on the porch." And I thought it was funny because me and him wasn't close like that. I was like, "What do you want?" I was your typical 13, 14-year-old kid. He said, "I just want you to hear something. Come out here." And so I went on the front porch, and it was about dusk, just like you're saying, twilight, kind of daylight, but not yet dark. And he said, "Stand here and tell me if you hear this." So I stood there, and if you can picture, I lived out in the country. In front of the house is a huge cow pasture. Nothing. I'm just huge. But to your left is knobs, like just wooded area, not quite mountains, but still big old,
That's
mountainous
pretty.
type things. And I was standing there, and all of a sudden I heard the god awful sound come out of that holler. And so it hit me in the chest like I mean, as funny as it sounds, like a, death ray or something like that. It actually knocked me down. Now, like, it knocked me down. I got up and ran into the house. I've never been so scared in my life. And that night I got real sick, and I threw up all night. But I never gave it much thought. I saw, it was a cow that made some kind of sound, scared me, and I was just being a little sissy, and I had to run in the house. But when he was telling me that story, I was thinking, I was like, man, maybe that was what I heard was the infrasound, because, you can hear sounds, but it shouldn't feel like something's punching you in the chest when you hear it. And that's the best way I can describe it, is I heard it and it felt like something hit me in the chest and physically knocked me down on the porch and just terrified me to the point I got up and ran into my bedroom, stayed in there all night sick. So I just wonder if you guys may have heard anything like that, or have you ever heard anything like that going on?
I've heard of the screeching. I've never heard of it called that, but I'm assuming that that's gonna be the same thing. Basically the same description, and, I haven't heard it myself. I've heard the knocking, I've
Yeah.
heard kind of the grunting sounds, um, and I have smelled the kind of, I guess, what you would call the pungent, somewhere in between skunk or ganja.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I've smelled that when I was a kid out Myrtle Creek, because my dad did when I was, like, 9 years old. My dad became, he was working for, like, gold prospecting,
Okay.
and Myrtle Creek it's a beautiful little town in Douglas County, Oregon, and there's a lot of thick woods, most of Oregon's thick woods anyways, but it's just really dense and, really beautiful territory. Well, I'm actually from, like, maybe 2.5 hours north of there, so it wasn't, like, my usual stomping grounds, if you will. But my dad was getting me and my brother every other weekend, and on certain holidays, like, he would get us, like, spring break, or what my parents were, divorced at this point.
Right.
And, because he was getting us for one weekend when he was supposed to have to also do prospecting, he asked if it was possible to be able to bring us to the camp that they had, and, he knew that we were good enough not to go get on any equipment or be in anywhere we weren't supposed to be, and he set up a campsite, and we were just gonna hang out for the weekend and everything and camp with him while he did, and he taught my brother how to gold pan and stuff like that, just different little things that we could do. And it was way out in the middle of nowhere, like, nothing around, like, and Myrtle Creek was maybe 30 minutes away, so that was the closest town, and, of course, dad had all the supplies that we needed for that whole weekend, and he was really my dad was, at one point, a navigation watchman, and he was a chase boat pilot in the Everglades, and he worked, at the Grand Canyon, North Rim, all kinds of, like, really adventurous stuff.
Yeah, that
He used
sounds
to
like
tell
the
everybody.
yeah, that
Yeah,
sounds
he
like
was a
the
great
world's most interesting man there, dang.
he was a great dad. I used to tell people all the time, my dad reminds me a lot of Steve Irwin, very, very similar type of vibe.
Right.
But, um, yeah, so all of those things kind of played into me being in Myrtle Creek, and my dad was like, "Here's the lay of the land, here's the law of where you don't go," that kind of thing, so we knew what our boundaries were, and I was really excited to, hang out with my dad and my brother and learn to do some things until I realized how boring it actually is. And you're lucky if you do get some gold, right? That's a cool, great moment, but otherwise you're basically just slinging water and mud around.
Yeah, I bet.
And, so after about a day of this, I was like kind of bored of that. And I was like, I want to go for a walk. And my dad's like, well, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and walk where I told you can. But just remember, watch out, for these things and squatch. And I
Uh-oh.
was like, you got to be kidding me, right? And he's like, we're in the middle of nowhere. There's definitely, if there's anywhere Sasquatch is going to be, this is where it's probably going to happen.
Yeah.
Just be aware. Um, so I thought he was kidding or just trying to, spook me like a parent does, make sure that I stay in line because there actually really are bear or whatever, you know what I mean? Cougars.
Oh, I guarantee
Um,
it, yeah.
there are things that will eat you, right?
Yeah.
And so I go and I start walking and I'm walking through this field and I mean just picture like a beautiful mountainous like when you see like these great America videos and they talk about like purple mountains majesties and fields of grain, that kind of look, like
Right.
just really pretty. And it was early spring, and so there were like a couple of daisies on the ground, and then there were also large because we have the giant daisies here too, large wild ones growing already at that time. And I'm just walking around like, a young girl through this magical meadow until I start to smell that. And I smell this pungent aroma and it's skunk like, and I'm like, okay, it's probably just a skunk, right? And I continue walking and I just dismiss it, go away from it. I don't want it to spray me, but if I
Right.
just leave it alone, it'll leave me alone, right? And so I keep walking and all of a sudden I hear one of those knocks. Now, it was nothing like the knock that I heard in I think it was 2019 at the one that I told you about first. It was nothing like that. It was more just like one loud knock against a tree, and I could recognize it again. I could hear better back then. That was before I started to go a little bit hard of hearing. But it was just like one hard knock on a tree. And I thought the way it sounded that maybe like a loose or a dead limb, some deadfall was coming down or something,
Mhm.
already smelled the skunk thinking that's normal in my mind, 9 years old, rationalizing that,
Right.
rationalizing the stick because I don't want to be scared. I'm trying to enjoy my walk.
Right.
And so I keep walking and then boom, boom, two more times I hear it. And by this time, I'm like frozen, looking around, like there's nothing else here. I can't see any other animals. Trying to see if maybe there is maybe a mountain lion that's stalking me because they can do something
Oh,
like
yeah.
that and
Yeah,
stuff
they
on
do.
you. And I don't see anything, nothing. And then all of a suddenly it's like it's so quiet. Before that, there were birds. Like I said, it was this magical meadow, right? Songbirds and stuff like that singing and just, light little activity. It was suddenly dead silent,
Yeah.
except after that first knock, it was just like nothing.
Yeah, I've heard that a
So
lot. They said when the forest goes silent, that's when you know something's gonna happen. What time of day was this?
it was, I mean, probably, I don't know, between like 3 and 4 o'clock. It wasn't like really late. It was earlier in the day, but it
Yeah.
wasn't real early in the day. And that's something that does kind of stand out to me. I feel like they're more nocturnal or
That's
more
what I was
towards
gonna
the
ask you. Do you think they're nocturnal?
yeah.
Seems like that's a lot of people have. It's either at night or toward the end of the day like that. That that kinda makes me think they're nocturnal, yeah. Go ahead, I didn't mean to interrupt you, though.
Yeah, yeah, I was just agreeing with you. And I think that's also what adds to their elusivity. Like they're able
Yeah,
to everybody's asleep, right?
exactly, yeah, yeah. You know what I was thinking the other day because the whole skunk ape thing, and you may never have thought about this, but I'll just run it by you. What if they don't really smell like a skunk, but what if they, get a skunk and take its, stink stuff off of it and kinda use that as a deterrent themselves?
I've thought that it might be a deterrent in that way because that's
Yeah.
brilliant, or that it might be a pheromone thing.
Mhm.
Either way, to kind of just be so pungent
Mm.
that people are kind of deterred and just don't come around because they don't like the
Yeah.
smell.
Well, that's why the skunks have it
Yeah,
is for a deterrent. So,
yeah,
if they're intelligent creatures, maybe they've noticed that that's why the skunks do that, and they may have developed some way to use the skunks to do that for themselves.
that
It's
is true.
fascinating, man. It really is. Um,
We've used skunks to make perfume. Who's to say they can't?
I get now who's taking skunks to make perfume? Fill me in on that.
We used to like old days perfumery. They used to take the glands from skunks. I
Oh,
believe. Let me get you something here.
oh, dang, boy. I think I'll
And
pass on
use
that. I'll just
it
smell like
and the
sweat.
musk. Well, it's the Glen essence. It's
Mhm.
basically like if you've ever heard of the terms musk, they actually make musk from animal musk.
Okay.
And there's a couple of different animals that have the best type to use. And so skunk perfume, or rather its gland essence, is basically a potent oily substance that they produce near the end of their tail. And it
Oh,
has this composition of a thing called, I believe it's called theos. And if you use it in tiny amounts, I guess it's one of the base notes that they can use to make a really lasting, pungent perfume, and so some of the first greatest perfumes that were made,
Wow.
they actually harvested that to make them,
See,
so
that's what
that's
we
when I
do
was
on the Paranormal War Room here, man. We learn, we learn something new every day, you know. But, sorry, I had a coughing fit again.
it's
Um,
alright. I hope you feel
di
better soon.
well, man, it's going on 2 weeks, man. I'm hoping I'll shake it one of these days. Uh, I was listening to you talk on another podcast. Did you mention, your grandfather had some, experiences too, or was it just your dad you was talking about?
On that one I was talking first, I think it was about my dad and his friend, and
Yeah.
then there were some people in my family that were the ones that worked on logging roads
Yeah.
and had talked about different experiences, and then, of course, I also told people about the one that my mom and her brother, when they were kids out Blue River, near Blue River, where they were swimming.
Mhm.
And that one, I think, because my mom and her brother are basically a year apart, and she's the older one. I think they were like 9 and 10. So they were swimming, and they used to just basically go out wherever they wanted to up Blue River wandering. I mean, it was a different time in the 60s, especially in Oregon, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, I
So,
guarantee it, yeah.
uh, yeah, kids just kind of did, and they survived. Obviously, they were smart enough
You
to
you was either gonna
live.
survive or you wasn't back in those
Yeah.
days, man,
So they were smart. My mom and her brother are also, that's the native side of my family. So they kind of always kind of believed in different things. And so they went swimming out Blue River, and they were just, 9, 10 years old out there swimming, having fun. It was a regular summer day in the afternoon. I don't know what time, but I'm imagining that probably like 2 or 3 o'clock, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and they were together playing around, having fun until they heard a knocking sound too. And it was on the other side because they were like on this section of the river and it was like across from them. But you could hear it loud as day, the same knocking. And that they looked across and they kinda seen, like, a shadowy figure, looked like it was dark brown furry and those same glowing eyes, and because of what they already knew about the area and believed anyway, they just got out of the water and left, like, as quickly as they could, ran off.
Yeah, see, that's why people that grew up back then made it to be adults because they had common sense, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a lot of people these days don't have common sense like that, but back in those days, if something like that happened, you knew just to go home for the day. I guess
that
ano
was the way that you came home.
exactly, that was the Lord's way of telling you to go home. So has this changed your, view of going in the woods? Do you like to go back in the woods now, or does it kinda make you a
Oh,
little
I love
skittish?
going in the woods. And I mean, I'm not gonna tell nobody that going into the woods because there might be these things makes it suddenly scarier. It's the woods are the wilderness. They're
Mhm.
dangerous, they're beautiful, they're savage, they're a healing place, they're all of these things. This is the nature of what it means to be free, though. When you get to go out there and you know that there are all these risks and you're still able to enjoy the beauty and the peace of it. Like, I didn't let those noises totally, completely disrupt me from my love through life of walking through a magical meadow. You see what I'm saying? Like,
Exactly.
that's those golden hour moments that we long for and we see in movies or in photographs, we can make that a reality in our life by going and doing those things. Now, at the same time, you do need to be aware of your surroundings. Tell people where you're going. Take somebody with you. People end up vanishing in the woods all the time, and it has nothing to do with anything paranormal and everything to do with just unfortunate circumstances. And then in other cases, possibly it was paranormal. We are constantly doing research to try to find out what is out there, but it's no more dangerous visiting the woods than it is going to a metropolitan city knowing somebody might try to mug you. Are you going to allow that to deter you from actually living your life?
Yeah, people I try not to, but you never can tell. A theory I heard, which makes a lot of sense about because when you talk about Bigfoot to people, all the naysayers, the first thing they say is, "Well, there's no way Bigfoot can exist because with 10 million trail cams out there, we would have got a picture by now." But I asked this question to some other people, and it makes a lot of sense that maybe they can see that infrared. When you go into the infrared, that's what causes it to take a picture. And the way it was explained to me is that maybe looking, that's probably like a bright light to them. And maybe they know to stay away from that bright light, which is why they don't ever get a picture snapped of them. What do you think that's a possibility, or?
Absolutely. I think that these are incredibly intelligent creatures
I
as a
do too.
baseline.
If
And I
they,
think that the moment that we accept that, I mean, we see dogs and cats learn to be able to flush toilets or open door handles.
exactly.
If that can happen in our most domesticated creatures, the ones that are more intelligent and obviously able to continue to survive in this elusive way that they have are going to continue to do that as long as we deem them ignorant and we don't give them the benefit of the doubt of understanding that they likely know more than we do about the woods and how to use those resources in a beneficial way to keep themselves from being hunted by what would be their predominant predator, us.
Right, right. Well, if you think about it, chimpanzees, they're even smart enough to learn sign language and stuff like that. So if a Sasquatch is an undiscovered primate and they're smarter than a chimpanzee, Lord knows what they could come up with, something that's been around as long as we think they've been around, and to be as elusive as they are, they'd have to be very smart, in my opinion. Uh,
I agree. And I want to point out the fact that, I mean, they talked about sea monsters like the giant squid and things like that throughout history. And there was, for a long time, no actual photographic evidence. There was only, drawings or the sightings and tales from people that saw them until they finally got one. And you never know when that's going to happen. So if that can happen and we can find out we have these giant sea monsters, quote unquote, that are, giant octopus, giant squid, whatever the case may be, I think it's really undercutting ourselves to say that there might not be a primate that's highly intelligent in, the North American continent and even elsewhere in the world.
yeah, there's no doubt about that. When you think about the ocean, especially, if there's anything that could hide out, it would be in the ocean, because, that's someplace that we physically can't go and explore like we want to. What is your wildest imagination tell you could be that could be down there? What's the wildest thing you think?
Oh
Pick your
God.
mind a
So
little bit here.
I have thalassophobia. For those of you who don't know what that long vocabulary word is, it means fear of the ocean depths. Now, with that said, I have been on the ocean, I've swam in the ocean, I love to go to the beach, but I am not afraid of the ocean and the aspects of the beauty of it. I do respect it and I know that it's deadly beautiful, but the depths are scary because of exactly what you just described.
Right.
The unknowing. The amount of possibility is endless, and I am an author. So
Mhm.
when I think of what could possibly be the most terrifying thing in the depths of the ocean, that goes biblical for me. Like we're talking like Leviathan.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like, terrible, disastrous, scary sea monsters that make us look like we're a chicken nugget.
Golly bum, there's just no telling. And you know what's spooky? Have you ever stood on the beach at night and just looked out into the blackness?
Oh, yeah.
That's just, it makes you realize how small you are.
Oh, yes, it
And there's
does.
just the possibilities are endless as to what could be in that water out there. I'm
Yeah.
fascinated with the ocean, if you can't tell. I mean, I've always been very curious about it.
Well, marine biology was something I was really into as a kid. So yes, I have a great love and admiration, but yeah, that's my deepest fear, haha, quote
No pun
unquote.
intended.
Yep.
Well, one more thing. What do you say to people that's like, you know what, Si, I don't believe you? What do you say to the naysayers out there?
I mean, I'm not gonna go out here to make up a bunch of stuff unless I'm getting paid for it.
For
And when I
real.
come on the podcast, like I'm doing this because you asked to learn about it. I'm sharing my experience. Take it how you want to take it. Go
Mhm.
out there and find out for yourself. Just like I was skeptical and then I became open-minded and then these things happen. This is a personal journey and I'm not here to make you believe me or to convince you. I'm just here to tell you what I experienced and you just figure it out for yourself for there.
You know what? The one thing that kinda made me give a lot of credence to the Bigfoot story, and counting I've talked to several people about Bigfoot, and the one thing that I always ask everybody is like, "Well, what would you say to the naysayers?" And what is the one piece of evidence that makes you think that this is true? And everybody always says, all the firsthand experiences everybody talks about, because you take these thousands and thousands of experiences, and a lot of them are similar. You know,
Yeah.
not everybody's lying, you know? It's just simple. Not everybody's lying. There might be 1 or 2 people that are making stuff up, but at the same time, like you said, what are you gonna get out of telling a lie about it, you know? But there's just no statistically, everybody's not lying about it, so, you know, we have to think, what are these people seeing in the woods? If it's not Bigfoot, then what is it, you know?
And I mean, and that's the open-ended, like, I believe it was Sasquatch from my own experience, from the things I've studied about the woods and what could possibly exist in them where I'm at. And from those countless amounts of stories that are just at this point innumerable. So everything that I've come to believe in through life is because of my direct experiences. And that's what I tell everybody. Take it or leave it. But reality is, like you said, the amount of people, I just, 1 or 2, yeah, maybe they're telling a fib. Maybe somebody's trying to pull a fast one. But hundreds of thousands of accounts, I don't think so.
Yep, that's exactly right. You know, I'm dying to ask you about these fog ghosts you were telling me about, and I'm dying to ask you about some more vampire stories, but I'm gonna hold off on that because, you know, we'll save that for another show. But why don't you tell us about your books you've written and, you know, where they can buy those at and anything else where we can contact you at if somebody else wants to talk to you, just let us know what you got going on.
Well, I'm basically on just about all of the socials, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. And you can DM me there or you can email me at simariejohnson@gmail.com. Um, and of course, that's for the podcast, or if you want to talk to me about any of my paranormal experiences or my NDE, or my books too. All of that. I basically just handle all of my information that way and deal with what comes as it comes. As far as my books, my newest book that's about to come out on March 13th is actually the sequel to a book that I originally wrote in 2013 called The Softer Side of Texas. I haven't really talked a whole lot about my author career on here, but I'm a multi-genre author, which means I write in a lot of several different types of genres. People need to understand that because a lot of people in the last few podcasts or the radio shows I've done have been like, you've got this kind and then you got this kind. Yes, I'm a multi-genre author. I have a lot of different genres that I write in.
Well,
This
there ain't nothing
particular
wrong with
one,
that.
I write what I'm inspired to write,
Exactly.
Corky, when it
Yeah.
comes to me. And I'm as a person, my interest in stories is so broad. Like I love gothic stories. And then I, right now with it being Oscar season, like I'm so happy that so many horror things got nominated. Like that's just like hits my heart. That's awesome. But at the same time, I'm also really into shows like Landman and Yellowstone, which a lot of people are like, this seems like
Mhm.
so different off the scale. And yes, that's true. But The Softer Side of Texas, Baseline is the first book. I recommend you get started there if you really want to be able to familiarize with the characters. However, it's not necessary. You can read Dust Traces Never Fade, which is part 2 and comes out March 13th, 2026. On its own, and it is a standalone, but it is part of the series and is the sequel to that book. And so basically, the family situation, I'll read you the synopsis. My main character's name is Ivanka Ivy Jessup. And okay, so sometimes the past doesn't just haunt you, it comes back to finish what it started. Ivanka Ivy Jessup thought she had finally found peace on her family's Texas ranch. With a devoted husband, Aaron, and 2 beautiful children, the terrors of her youth, the abduction that nearly broke her, felt like a fading nightmare. But beneath the surface of her honey sunshine smile, a storm is brewing. Nightmares are clawing their way back into her reality, and a sense of impending dread has gripped Ivy in a chokehold she can't explain. Then the unthinkable happens. In the blink of an eye, her 2-year-old daughter Aaliyah vanishes from her preschool's car rider line. The
Aye.
routine that Ivy fought so hard to build is shattered, replaced by a cold, toxic fear. This isn't a random tragedy. It's a calculated strike from a ghost of the past, Dom Oswaldo Marote, a man seeking a blood debt for the empire that Ivy helped dismantle. As
Mm.
Aaron battles his mounting rage and the ticking clock of a police investigation, Ivy realizes that to save her daughter, she must step back into the shadows she spent years escaping. From the quiet dirt roads of the Jessup farm to the dark, corrugated walls of a hidden warehouse, the hunt is on. With the help of unexpected allies and a sisterhood forged in the darkest corners of the city, Ivy must face a monster who believes that some scars should never heal. For this time, Ivy is prepared to pay whatever it takes to ensure that the dust traces of her past are finally swept away forever. This is a contemporary romantic Western suspense.
That sounds deep, man. It really does. And they could get that on Amazon? Is that where?
Yes, they can, and it will be available in Kindle and on paperback.
Sweet. Are all your books available on Amazon? They just search your name or?
Yeah, just about all of them, I believe, are, but there are some that are wide, which means that they're on other places like Barnes& and Noble or
Okay.
Kobo, but there are some that are actually exclusive to just Amazon for a little while. You'll see that when you go on my Amazon author page, or just go on Amazon, search in books for Sai Marie Johnson, and you'll find that.
Awesome. Awesome. That sounds fascinating. I'm going to get one of your books and add it to my collection back here. So I'll be ordering one of those up and put you on the wall back here behind me.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Yeah, well, Si, I really appreciate you coming on here and telling me about your big feet stories, man. It's very interesting, and I've enjoyed sitting here and listening to it.
Well, thank you for having me as always. We'll have to line up
Oh,
some
yeah.
time to talk about some more ghosts
You
and
done
things.
told me about the fog people, so I was wanting to go ahead and say, hey, tell me about that tonight, but we've done been going for about an hour, so I'll just save that for another show. But yeah, I appreciate everybody turning in. Everybody check out Si and all her books and stuff like that she's got coming out. And well, until then, we'll see you later. Bye.
In the paranormal war room, the legends arise.